Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm holding a mic for our recording, so don't worry, my voice should not be projected any louder than it is right now. My name is Marissa. For those of you that do not know me, I'm the Environmental Education Manager here at Cape Fear River Watch, and I coordinate our first Saturday seminar series. So very excited to see such a great showing today, despite the road traffic and the race. So thank you guys all for coming out anyway, and hopefully you got some pancakes and coffee. If not, there's plenty still back in that first room. I'm going to share a couple Cape Fear River Watch announcements before I turn it on over to our director, Dana. We have a couple events happening this month, so December is still busy for us. Today, we actually have after seminar. If you're in the Wrightsville Beach area, the Wrightsville Beach Brewery is holding a alternative gift market where you can go and shop with local nonprofits in the area and get things like memberships and merchandise from those organizations. Wrightsville Beach Brewery supports us here at the River Watch. We get a portion of proceeds of one of their beers in the month of June, so feel free to go out and check that out and enjoy some good beer. Later tonight, we also have a record release party at Satellite Bar. It is the Water is Life Volume 3, so we are also recipients of proceeds from that record, and it's an environmental record, a lot of wonderful local artists. Next week, we do not have a second Saturday cleanup because it is December, so just a mention about that. And also tomorrow is the last day that the boathouse will be open at Greenfield Lake for the season. So tomorrow, after tomorrow, we'll close and we will reopen in 2024. If you guys are interested in coming out to Burnt Mill Creek to learn a little bit more about that watershed and also the grant that the River Watch has been involved with this year and will be in the following 2 years, we will have a Burnt Mill Creek Eco Tour that is free to participate in. It will be happening on Thursday, December 14th at 10 a.m. and you can ask me for more details after our presentation if you're interested in getting registered for that. Two last things. We have our end of year fundraiser going on right now until December 31st. So we encourage you guys to renew your membership. If you are a member, become a member. If you're not one, make a donation that will be tax deductible to support us here and all the work we do at Cape Fear River Watch. We also have a donation jar in that first room as you're walking out today if you want to drop any cash in there. And lastly, I just want to shout out whenever we have board members here, we do like to just point out our board members. So Ted Poucher, where are you? Right here, a longtime supporter and board member, so just wanted to point out that he's in attendance today. So thank you. And then I'm going to pass it on over to our director, Dana, who will be introducing our speaker for today.
Thank you, Marissa. Great to see everybody. One point about the Fort Lowell record release party, we don't get any proceeds, so we just get outreach, which is great. This organization, Fort Lowell Records, allowed us to write the liner notes for this record. So half of the record liner notes are written by me, the other half by Andy Wood, who most of you are familiar with, and his son, Carson, did the latest one. So it's just an opportunity for engagement for us where we might not otherwise have it. But that said, we're not getting any funds, so make sure you put in your donations for that end of year campaign. Super helpful. I am honored to introduce Kenny. I'm going to read his bio and then do a little bit more. Kenneth Waldroup is Executive Director of Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. Excuse me. We all know it here at CFPUA, the primary drinking water and wastewater provider in Wilmington and New Hanover County. Ken has more than 30 years of experience in the water industry, is a licensed professional engineer, and holds a bachelor's degree in nuclear engineering from NC State University and a master's in public admin from NC Central University. He is a former member of the North Carolina Environmental Management Commission and has volunteered in water sector trade and professional orgs for most of his career. Ken and his wife Evelyn live in downtown Wilmington, where they enjoy sharing the vibrant food, entertainment, cultural offerings with their 2 adult daughters and visiting family and friends. And then on a personal note / Cape Fear River Watch note, which is the same thing as personal for me, Ken has just been a massive partner with Cape Fear River Watch in working through this PFAS issue, in helping to keep us informed and helping to maintain a relationship, or actually I would say more build a relationship between Cape Fear River Watch and the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. When he showed up, things changed. We were brought to the table for conversations, and that is key. And I am extremely grateful, and I think our community has done nothing but benefit from his leadership. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you so much for being here, and look forward for your conversation.
Hello, friends. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoy coming out and speaking to people that I serve or people who come in on a regular basis and drink our water. Let me see a show of hands, and I'm just curious, how many folks are our customers, Cape Fear Public Utility Authority customers? All right? And I bet the rest of you come in and enjoy the restaurants or enjoy the food. You may work in New Hanover County, so you're probably consuming our water also. So I want to thank you for giving us a chance and for trying out our product. And I also want you to try it. I also want you to take a few moments and think about water. I'm speaking to an audience that has the same passion for this topic as all of my staff. If you get into the water sector, if you get into the water business, you have a love of two things. Service. I can tell you most of the people I've worked with over 30 years serve their community, and it's sometimes in more than one way. Firemen, policemen at part-time, EMS, and they're also water plant operators in their second job. So service is a big thing in our industry. And the other thing is the love of water. If you come to our parking lot during the summer, it was the best experience I had when I drove up to our water plant and saw a line of surfboards ready to go out after the day was over and to go enjoy this incredible environment that we have. And people who had boats and people who were talking about how much they love to get out and how their entire experience was around water, both at work and at home. So we have that in common. I want to share a little bit about our industry and about CFPUA and things that are going on here in New Hanover County. And I want this to be a two-way conversation. Ask questions. I love questions. Be curious is one of the favorite sayings that I have and I listen to. So let's see, where's our advancer? So my dad, among other things, he was a great guy. And among other things, he loved history. He exposed me to history. So when I came here to New Hanover County, Evelyn and I moved in, and we knew we were moving to a part of North Carolina that had the richest history of our state, right? And of course, I want to talk about water because that's my career. And the history of New Hanover County and Wilmington is so tied together with water. Water provided a living. Water as a public service for drinking has some deep roots in this community also. 1881, 142 years ago, public water supply was a new idea. That's the same year, by the way, that Charlotte implemented its water system. And what happened was, before 1881, the community received its water from springs and from wells, and it was a very individualized experience. And we were seeing in the water business a public health renaissance. We were discovering, around this time, water pathogens and a recognition that public health is better served when the water provided to the public is treated. Another recognition that we had was we were industrializing. And with industrialization came a lot of things, industrial pollution, of course, and it also came the risk of fire. There was a famous fire in this community. The steamship Bladen drifted into the docks and set fire to the warehouses and generated over $1 million worth of damage. That's like $35 million in today's dollars. So the community first said, we need public water supply for firefighting purposes. And the Clarendon Water Works was incorporated. It was a private business to provide water for firefighting. Where did they get their water? They got it from the Northwest Cape Fear River, just up the stream here. And we've actually been using that site for 142 years to serve our community. So the first water supply is your current water source here in this community. Now, over time, it drifted from being a private business to a public service. The city of Wilmington purchased both the private water system and a private sewer system that came along. And for 95 years, the city of Wilmington was the public provider. Of course, Wilmington's not all of New Hanover County. So as communities grew outside of Wilmington, there was a need for public and water and wastewater service. New Hanover County stepped forward in the middle 80s and incorporated or created a water and sewer authority, the New Hanover County Water and Sewer Authority. So our community had two fairly large water systems, plus several smaller ones. Wrightsville Beach has had a water system for a long time, Carolina Beach, Curie Beach, and there was a number of investor-owned utilities. That was public water. Well, in 2007-8 timeframe, there was a transition. Sadly, it is true that sometimes water systems go through bad times. And there was a bad time going on where the water systems weren't talking to each other, the wastewater systems weren't really working well together, and the end result was sanitary sewer overflows. We had raw sanitary sewer spilling into our waterways inappropriately. And it's something that could be avoided. So what happened was the state and federal government stepped in and said that we are going to correct this imbalance. And one of the solutions, to the credit of our community leaders, was to say, all right, instead of having multiple water systems, we're going to create one entity whose sole purpose is to provide clean drinking water and protect the environment. That's all they're going to worry about. And that's what the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority is. That's what it was created for in 2008. We are the creation of the city and county, which means the city and county appoints our board. We have 11 board members, 5 appointed from the city, 5 appointed from the county, 1 jointly appointed. We serve now 200,000 people, your friends, your family, your neighbors. And we have approximately 75,000 accounts. So that's a lot. That's not a small utility. It's about the 10th or 9th largest in the state, depending on how you measure it. We are ratepayer funded, not for profit. So we like to call ourselves a company because we operate like a private business. We operate for efficiency and effectiveness. But in reality, we are a special purpose unit of local government that you own as citizens. And we don't operate for a profit. We operate to ensure that the system's here for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. That's our purpose. This year, our operating budget was right at $113 million. So this community asset that you have some stake in, if you're a customer or you're drinking our water, is a $113 million business. Moreover, we are the stewards of $1 billion worth of infrastructure below the ground and above the ground. That's what you have. That's what you own. We have 340 employees and 2 water treatment plants. The largest is our historic treatment facility at the Sweeney location. It's the Sweeney Water Treatment Plant. Again, just 2.25 miles upstream of us. We have a rather new one called the Richardson facility. It's up in the Ogden area. It's a groundwater reverse osmosis treatment facility. We have 1,200 miles of water line. That's part of that $1 billion worth of infrastructure. So what does 1,200 miles look like? Well, if we could lay it end over end, we could send water from here to Dallas, Texas. And we have about the same amount of wastewater lines, so we could bring it right back. And of course, this is a coastal community. So water flows downhill, but if you don't have a hill, you have to pump it, right? So we're pumping wastewater from across the county to 2 treatment facilities. And I want you to keep in mind that those treatment facilities are our gift to the environment. Otherwise, wastewater would go out into the environment and poison it. Wastewater treatment plants are environmental reclamation facilities. And your community owns 2 of them. Now, as I mentioned, our first water source was the northwest Cape Fear River in 1881. During World War II, the community had explosively grown, and it was time for another source because, quite frankly, we were polluting our existing source through industrialization. So where did they look in the middle of World War II? They looked to the Cape Fear River, and they looked to the Cape Fear River in trepidation. I've read the documents. They were afraid at the beginning because of the industrialization of that river and the potential biological pollution. That's what they were worried about then, was biological pollution. Why did they decide to go there anyway? Because the first wastewater treatment plants were being built in the middle of World War II. And that reassured our community downstream that there would be some type of upstream treatment for those biological risks. So the moral of the story is our community has always been downstream of everybody else, right? And we've always had a concern about the water quality that comes to us because of that. So we've tried to stay at the forefront of managing our watershed and managing our water resource for the good of our community. And that's been true for a lot longer than CFPUA has been around. So in '43, Wilmington decided to build a pump station about 25 miles upstream at Lock and Dam number 1 at a place called Kings Bluff. And the surrounding counties recognized in 1970 that that was probably the last reasonable place to withdraw water and ensure that we had a safe source that wasn't subject to saltwater intrusion and had a minor impoundment there for drought period. So there was the creation of this regional raw water authority called the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority. Focused first on providing raw water. Later on, they built a water treatment plant upstream to provide water to the Smithfield swine packing facility. So they're truly a water provider both on the raw water side and on the drinking water side now. But most of our water doesn't come from our aged facility that was built in '43. Now most of our water comes from the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority that also provides water to Brunswick County, until recently provided it to Leland through Brunswick County, provides it to Pender County. So that's an incredibly valuable community resource that all 3 counties, plus Columbus County and Bladen County, try to protect. So Dana mentioned PFAS. And I can't have a conversation with any of our public without going through the history of PFAS because it is part of our DNA now. In 2017, in June of 2017, an enterprising reporter published an article that shared with the public the reality that we had per and polyfluoroalkyl substances in our drinking water. Now, I think I'm speaking with an extremely knowledgeable group. I'll share a few things. One is CFPUA and other utilities have long partnered with academia. I came from a utility at Raleigh where we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a year supporting NC State and others to study water. And CFPUA is another utility that did so, and it partnered with NC State researchers who were looking at this strange new class of chemicals that were replacing legacy PFAS compounds that were known to be problematic. So from the 2012 timeframe to the 2017 timeframe, our academic partners were trying to help the world understand what was happening in our water supply. And in late 2016, I published a paper that said we had these new compounds that were related to the legacy compounds represented by a class of chemicals now famously known as GenX chemicals. And our Sweeney water treatment plant, which had been completely rebuilt between 2008 and 2012. Our community completely rebuilt that plant. That brand new plant was failing to remove this new class of chemicals, and it was in our water supply. And unfortunately, we found ourselves among the sad few at the very front end of this now national problem. But here, almost 6 years later, 5 years later, a year and a month ago, the same newspaper publishes an article about how our community overcame that problem. And I think it's a great story, and I can say that because I had nothing to do with it. I came in when the team had solved the problem and were in the middle of implementing it and getting it ready. So I can cheerlead them, and I can tell you I watched it from afar when I was working from Raleigh Water and was amazed, shocked that a local government would take it upon itself to solve a problem in front of the state and federal government. They got no guidance whatsoever from the state and federal government. The community came together as a whole, and it crossed demographic boundaries, it crossed political boundaries, economic boundaries, and the community as a whole said, we shall do something about it. And it was amazing. During this period, 5-year period of time, this utility looked at the problem, studied solutions, and built infrastructure. That is almost unheard of. That's a wartime effort lift. The last time this community's been through that kind of effort literally was World War II. And now, we know things that we didn't know in 2017. We know who the polluter is. It's our neighbor upstream, Chemours, formerly DuPont. And we have a strong partnership with the state of North Carolina trying to ensure that under the consent order, they resolve the problems that they have created for our communities. And we, on behalf of you, are also litigating them for the work that we're doing to resolve their problem. And that's ongoing. So I'll briefly mention how amazing this facility is, this granular activated carbon facility. It is 40% or so, my guesstimate, of the rest of the facility combined. It, in terms of cost, was $43 million. In terms of cost of operation, the rest of the facility costs about $4.9 million to operate this new component. This water plant bolted onto our water plant to polish our water costs $4.4 million. So we almost doubled the cost of operating our facility to remove this pollution. And these are huge, giant filters. I'd love to set up an opportunity with Dana for us to provide a tour so you could come see what you have wrought as a community. It's amazing. We have 3 million pounds of granular activated carbon divided into 4 chambers, 4 contactors. I'm sorry, I said 4, it's 8. And there's 375,000 pounds in each of those 8 contactors. And we replace all of that carbon every 300 to 360 days. So every year, we are removing spent media, trucking it up to Buffalo, New York, having it regenerated, having all of the PFAS driven out of it, and bringing it back and reusing that media again. So it's a recycle process. It takes about 60 days. And we're removing 3 million pounds a year and doing that. That's the level of effort that we had to undertake to address the pollution of our neighbor Chemours. Now, again, I want to speak so well of the folks that came before me because they didn't know what they needed to design for. In 2017, there was one set of chemicals, GenX chemicals, and we were going to design to resolve that problem. And what was deemed to be acceptable in terms of exposure to GenX was dropping the whole time. By 2018, we were monitoring and designing for 6 chemicals. Today, we are monitoring for between 65 and 70 types of PFAS. We regularly see 20 to 25 types. And we are exchanging our filter media based on smaller and smaller kinds of PFAS that are specific to our neighbor Chemours, which means our operating costs are higher than we thought they would be in 2018. But the great thing about this design is it was flexible. We designed with the future in mind, which is something that the community does a lot. New system goes online in October 2022. By March, April of 23, federal government finally proposes a national primary drinking water standard for PFAS. So 5, almost 6 years after we discovered it in our water, under the Safe Drinking Water Act, the first regulations federally, nationally, were proposed. They still haven't been finalized. They're due for finalization at the end of this calendar year. Likely that won't occur until the first quarter of the new year. But the great news is this facility is fantastic at complying with those new regulations. They regulate 6 types of PFAS. PFOA, PFOS, GenX, and several others. And the new facility is consistently removing those to a level that is at or below detection for the long chain items. That's great work. It's what we designed. Question?
Just a quickie question. I know you're monitoring that internally. Are there outside sources like NC State also monitoring this externally for validation?
That's a good question. We do offer up samples to others, and NC State has taken samples for other purposes. But yes, there are opportunities to validate that. There are opportunities. We are sampling more than most of our peers, anywhere from every week to every 2 weeks. And I'm proposing in this year's budget our own laboratory to do the sampling internally so we can sample even more often, because it's a 3-week turnaround on that data. Now, keep in mind, for the types of PFAS that are to be regulated, we're doing a fantastic job. But there's other types of PFAS that we've discovered between 2018 and today that are not scheduled for regulation, by the way, that we're spending time trying to optimize for the future, to reduce and remove those types of PFAS, called ultra short chain. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is a 0 PFAS facility. It's doing far better than anybody in the nation's doing. And we're working with our partners at NC State and at UNC Chapel Hill to explore new types of media. The great thing about this facility is it will accept new and different types of media. So I can imagine a future. Where we have granular activated carbon for long chain and what used to be called short chain, and another media right below that, so multimedia approach, multi-barrier approach for short chain. Right now, that's where kind of where our focus is all right, how do we manage this short chain? And also, we've approached the state in partnership with others and said, listen, we need information. EPA is doing a great job in trying to regulate these 6, but state of North Carolina, please do the heavy lifting to talk to us about the health effects of what's left and what is an acceptable amount. So we've asked the state of North Carolina to do reference doses, to do preliminary health goals, and even to go so far as to regulate us for these other things. So we have a measured yardstick of success.
Where does the PFMOAA sort out to short and long chain?
It's 3 carbon, so that's ultra short chain. That is what we're using to measure success with today, by the way. The bar that we've set for ourselves, and it's a community bar, we've said that we are going to look at the rule that the federal government proposed, and they look at rolling annual averages, and we're going to keep the rolling annual average of PFMOAA, ultra short chain, 50% of what we see in the water supply, all coming from Chemours. We're going to keep that below 10 parts per trillion. That's our goal. And we've been successful in terms of rolling annual average. But now we've seen these other types of PFAS, like PFPRA, that's also ultra short chain, and it's breaking through as frequently or more frequently than PFMOAA. So we added another trigger for ourselves. We said our second trigger is 10,000 bed volumes. So I know that sounds strange. What do I mean by that? It's the measure of the efficacy and saturation of a filter. Who here has filtration at their home? Okay. So when do you know when to take that filter out? Calendar. Or maybe there's a little red light. We measure success by how much water goes through that big square contactor. 20 minutes. That's the contact time for those giant filters. And 10,000 volumes at 20 minutes. Or bed volumes 20 minutes. By the way, that's double or triple what most other granular activated carbon facilities do. That's how conservative we built into our system. So we've now targeted 10,000 bed volumes as the measure of removing a filter. We now say it's saturated at 10,000 bed volumes, or PFMOAA rolling annual average rises above 10. Yes, ma'am.
One question on the difference between activated carbon versus reverse osmosis. Is reverse osmosis more effective at the future proofing of potential, the short chain chemicals that you're...
We're going to find out. We are going to find out. I can share with you that, it depends on how you design your reverse osmosis facility. Some facilities use a little bit of the source water to stabilize the final product. Well, it's essentially bypassing the RO membranes, so you get PFAS passing them. Other facilities, like our friends over at Leland, they use chemicals to stabilize on the backside, so there's no stabilization using the source water. The advantage there is you're running everything through the membranes. The disadvantage is everything has to be restabilized using a chemical process where you buy the chemicals and truck them in. So I'm not saying this is true of Leland, but it is a truism that those types of facilities, the water has a very processed taste. It loses all of its palatability. So there's trade-offs. We will find out soon when our partners and friends over at Brunswick County put their new facility online, what it means for final product. And in this region of the nation, we will be live testing both primary treatment technologies side by side. And I say both, there's actually 3, ion exchange. But guess what? Your facility can be retrofitted for ion exchange. That may be one of the media that we test. So the true community or the true nation's treatment options will be live tested here first.
Yes, so all this is great, but I'm wondering about this $40 million cost to build the thing and the $4 million a year operating cost. Is Chemours paying for this, or?
We certainly hope they will. We have been litigating them for 6 years. I firmly believe that if Chemours wants to turn the page and live up to its corporate values and actually be a good neighbor, one of the things they need to do is come downstream and pay for the solution to their pollution. It's as simple as that. And I think that they'll get there either of their own accord or through our judicial system. Unfortunately, there's 40 years minimum legacy of pollution. Atmospheric discharge and deposition, sedimentation pollution, groundwater pollution from both of those sources. Yes, they, to their credit, and to the credit actually of this organization, they have been forced to build remediation at their highly polluted site. And they've done a lot of work to reduce pollution from that site. It's not completely done, by the way. The wall and the treatment system has to be optimized. All right? They've got to dial it in. But even then, there is a legacy, 40 years of legacy pollution, and it may take another 40, 50, or 60 years for that to flush out of the system. So that's why we have a granular activated carbon facility, and that's why Brunswick County is building a reverse osmosis facility. And that's why Brunswick has a granular active, or not Brunswick, but Pender County has a granular activated carbon facility that they may need to upgrade. Because our neighbors' pollution for 40 years is still there. They need to come clean up their trash. They need to come make it right with us. And I do believe they'll eventually do that, or be forced to do that.
A few minutes ago you were mentioning your peers. I don't know if you mean by peers other water providers in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It seems to me there's quite a difference between what I'm learning today that this is the success of this, and I'm not a customer of yours, unfortunately. I'm a customer of Aqua.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hearing or learning that there's a similar level of solutioning and dedication to it, and I didn't know if you all work together in some way to
We
try
do.
to-
No. I actually met up with Aqua's North Carolina's president this week. His name's Shannon Beckner. He's a really nice guy. He really is. And Aqua, to their credit, self-imposed a 13 part per trillion limit for certain types of PFAS before anybody else did. Now, with these new national primary drinking water standards being much lower, 4, and a hazard index of 1, they've got work to do, and they know that, and they're programming that into their budget. But this community, again, to its credit, did stuff that most communities don't do across the nation. It stepped out in front to solve its own problems first. And now there's somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 other utilities across the nation that are going to have to do the same thing. We hosted 435 individuals this year to come visit us across the nation. Other utilities, other engineering firms, academic institutions. Just this week, EPA Region 4's leadership and the leadership of all of the state environmental departments that are in Region 4 came here for their annual meeting, and we hosted them on a tour to look at the solutions. So this community is doing a lot for the rest of the nation, and I think that's to your credit.
Do you know if DQ is going to either have a consent order gonna demand that Chemours retests our wells
Oh.
to see if there's been a change in the GenX and PFAS levels that we had a couple years ago, to see if there's any movement or diminution of the concentration, you know. I understand that, you know, these are gonna sit in the aquifers, but
Yeah, I can't speak for DEQ other than to give them kudos. So in November of 2021, Secretary Elizabeth Beiser, brand new to the job, I think she was appointed that summer, came in, looked at the situation, and extended the protections of the consent order to 4 new counties, including Brunswick County, Pender County, and New Hanover County. So after a 5-year period, let's see, 2019 is when the consent order went in. So after a couple of years of looking at the situation, DEQ said, you know what, Chemours has a responsibility to the groundwater users of New Hanover County, and they're here on a regular basis. I can share with you, I think it's fair to share that Chemours is looking at 1,000 homes right now in New Hanover County alone that need some kind of mitigation. And I want to encourage you to encourage your neighbors to get their wells tested, because if my memory serves me correctly, only about 40% of people who have been asked to respond have responded. There's a lot of well owners in this county and in Brunswick County and Pender County who have simply not responded. And the more data that we have, the more DEQ has under its consent order to require Chemours to do something. So I can't answer your direct question other than to say the state is working very hard, and I encourage you to talk to them.
pertaining to what you said about mitigation, does that mean beyond installing GAC and RO systems in these residencies, that the homes that are using groundwater or wells, you mean running lines? In plain English, as far as mitigation. In other words,
All I can say is stay tuned. All I can say is stay tuned. There's things that may or may not occur. But again, to the state of North Carolina's credit, our local delegation brought $18 million to the table this year alone, dedicated to extending water lines in New Hanover County to those that have PFAS contamination in their wells. So we are the custodians of that money, and we're looking to maximize its use. And in January, February timeframe, we're going to recommend to our board on how to use that $18 million to try to solve problems. Now, coming back here, I want to point out this is on our website. Please go to our website. You can see the data. We are committed to transparency. This is what the 6 regulated compounds look like in terms of their future regulation and what's showing up in the finished water. So like I say, the people I inherited the work from have done a great job. Where we've got work to do is, again, this is rolling annual average. We're doing really good with our self-imposed limit, PFMOAA, keeping it below 10. But we have this compound that we recently discovered, PFPRA. And right now, the state of North Carolina is not even sure that the testing methodology for this is firm for anything below 20. So the state doesn't regard any sample below 20 as a valid sample, because this is brand new testing approaches and methodologies. We're publishing it because, hey, we said we want it to be transparent. We have some strong confidence in these other testing methodologies. Right now, our laboratory says this is what we think we see for PFPRA. The state doesn't recognize that as a valid sample. That's okay. We're going to let our customers know. And we're working to evaluate new types of filters to affect ultra short chain. All right, that's everything on PFAS.
So,
I'm checking my time.
talking about PFAS.
Yes.
You know, and anybody who's kind of tracked this over the last 20, 30 years knows that we keep finding new things. So there are PCBs, and then there's all sorts of stuff in the environment like creosote,
Mhm.
benzene compounds, and all sorts of other stuff. Who knows what else is out there, you know? What are you doing at looking at things that have not been discovered yet that might be getting into our
So there's the knowns, there's the known unknowns, and then there's the unknown unknowns, right? Yeah. So for the unknown unknowns, our commitment is to continue to partner with the best scientists in North Carolina and nationwide to make them knowns. That's where our money goes. For the things they uncover, we partner with the same researchers to look for new treatment technologies and to look for ways to optimize the existing treatment systems for that purpose. That's our commitment. And I'm very proud to say that we have staff members that are on these state and national bodies trying to advise for these purposes. So that's what we do in our industry. Is if we don't know, we find out. So I know PFAS is important. I want to check my time because I'm not brevity impaired. Where am I on time? 10 minutes. So with 10 minutes, I want to talk to you about other things.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This has nothing to do with PFAS. We live on Barnard's Creek. You have a sewage treatment facility that's within smell range when the wind is blowing right. And a lot of times Barnard's Creek, you know, nobody wants to paddle it.
Yeah.
Paddlers, just about everybody in our neighborhood has at least one canoe or kayak in their yard. There's a canoe kayak launch just up the street from us. So you got people leading groups through there, but it just looks awful. And you know, I know I've gotten, I found a bladder, shipping bladder off a cargo ship 2 miles up that creek, so I know what tide does. I'm just wondering, you all got that facility there. You know, the other places I've seen wetlands used as tertiary treatment facilities, and I don't see that there. Maybe somewhere else, I don't know. But is there release time to take into effect that, you know, if they release at the wrong time, it's going to go up Barnard's Creek? I mean, it's only a half mile down.
So that's up near the airport. That's our north.
No, that's not the airport.
What is it?
Barnard's is Echo Farms. You familiar with that?
I'm struggling. I've been here 2.5 years.
It's on River Road.
So the south side facility. So we release right into what is essentially the estuary there.
Yeah, the Cape Fear.
The Cape Fear.
And if you release at the wrong time, it's going to come back up our creek.
Right. I would welcome you and others to come visit us on the south side because I want to talk to you a little bit about south side facility.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that's the most important thing I want to talk to you about today, is south side. So hold that thought in the parking lot. Okay. That's in the thought parking lot. Okay? So I want to also note that we're working with our partners at New Hanover County to take this $18 million and another $500,000 that they have brought to the table and look for solutions for our unserved and underserved private communities, well communities where they have private wells and have PFAS contamination. We know that Chemours is going to be mitigating at people's homes, which means they're going to put in-house treatment of some kind. And we're trying to develop plans to extend water lines to as many places as possible. We have $18.5 million, thanks to the county and thanks to our local delegation, to start that process. It's probably a $100 million plus long-term project. So we plan in decades. Unfortunately, it's a decade-old problem. Also want to talk a little bit about our source water. We worked closely with upstream entities to try to get pollution at the source. We have a source water pollution plan. I'm very pleased to say that you have an employee with our staff who is currently the president of the Industry Water Quality Association. So we're out there in Raleigh often advocating for improved source water protection in our watershed. We advocate, we lobby at the General Assembly, and if we need to, we litigate. We're actually litigating some of our neighbors and peers upstream to try to ensure the reduction of 1,4-dioxane. So we're engaging on your behalf in multiple arenas: the public sphere, the General Assembly, the court of public opinion, and the actual courts. I also want to note, we talked a little bit about the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority. For years, we've had only one large water line to bring most of our water to us. That water line was installed in the 1990s. It was a 48-inch water line, and we discovered in 2021 that it was extremely fragile, that it had either been incorrectly installed or incorrectly designed, or both. And for a location for sure behind what used to be called the DAC facility and crossing the Cape Fear, it's extremely fragile. And it broke. And it put our entire county at risk of not having water. So we worked really hard with Brunswick County, Pender County, and the state delegation to bring money to the table to parallel that line. That's one of the single most important projects that we have underway because of the fragility of the line that's there. And to the credit of the General Assembly and to our delegation, they've brought $53.5 million of a $66 million project to the table. So we're focused, laser focused on getting that water line put in place so our community will have some resiliency for its water supplies. The last thing I want to do is to tell everybody that don't drink the water because we don't have any, right? And if that water line broke today completely, we would be in serious trouble. Because we only have our wells and a small water line, about a 30-inch water line, put in the 40s that can provide about 10 million gallons. Our average usage is 20. So again, I want to give a lot of credit to our community leaders and to the delegation for bringing 80% of the money necessary to solve this problem to the table over the last couple of years.
When will that be complete?
It's going to take us 2-3 years to complete it. We're in the middle of it right now. But thank goodness we've got the money to do the job. That was a big deal. And that's been under the radar. We haven't tried to cause a panic. That's been under the radar. We're going to get that project built, and we're going to build some resiliency for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. That's it.
Will it be at a larger capacity?
Same size.
Same size.
But we'll take the old line and we'll have to take it out of service and repair it. We'll have to. Resiliency, right? I want to note our nation doesn't do a good job of taking care of its infrastructure. Nationally, the American Society of Civil Engineers grades our water systems at a C-, which is an improvement, by the way, from what it used to be, and our wastewater systems at a D+. And you know why it's D+? Because they don't want to give an F. They don't want to give an F. I'm an engineer, I can tell you that's the answer. But again, this community has been amazing. I can say this because I'm a visitor, and I'm a transplant. I'm coming in. I can tell you what I can see without taking any credit for it. This community has done amazing work to maintain and improve its infrastructure. From the lows of 2008, when we had sanitary sewer overflows, to today, we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars to replace that $1 billion worth of infrastructure. Matter of fact, over the next 10 years, we're going to invest $684 million. 80% of that, about 77%, 80% of it is rehab, rehabilitation, and repair. That's a lot of investment. If you own a house in New Hanover County, I was shocked to find out the average home price is $415,000. So it'd be like investing $237,000 in your home over 10 years. replacing the roof, replacing the plumbing, leveling the floors, and just a little bit of it to add on for the next person that comes on. But you've done an amazing job of taking that investment and making something out of it. The investment over the last 15 years has dramatically reduced sanitary sewer overflows, stunningly so. So this is proof that the community's decision to create CFPUA and charge it with solving environmental and water quality problems paid off. But we still have work to do because we have infrastructure that continues to age out. That's why we need to be steadfast in our investment and be prepared to pay for the full cost of water and sewer. But no more than that. And that's why I want to come back to Southside. The Southside wastewater treatment plant was built in '72. It was one of a series of wastewater treatment plants that came about right at or near the time frame that the Clean Water Act was implemented. And it's been a wonderful community asset at treating 12 million gallons a day of wastewater using 1960s technology. Well, it's now 51, 52 years later, and the life expectancy of a wastewater treatment plant is 50 years. So we've already exceeded the life expectancy of that facility. To build the new granular activated carbon facility to treat things we didn't know about cost us $43 million. To replace this plant is going to be a minimum of $250 million. 5 times as much. And we're in the middle of designing for its replacement because we have to have it replaced by 2030. So this is our next generational lift, right? We have wrestled PFAS to the ground, and we're showing the rest of the nation how to deal with it. Now we've got to show the rest of the nation how do you replace these aging wastewater treatment plants, because we're not the only one. How do you afford to do it, and how do you build something that's better than what you had? Because this facility is going to have much better effluent quality than one that was constructed in the 70s with 60s technology, right? So our answer to your question is inherent into building back a better facility. We need your help. We desperately need your help, especially if you're one of our customers. We need you to support this project for the good of the environment and for the good of our community. And it's going to be a hard one. It's going to be a hard one because we're going to have to go ask for grants, we're going to have to go look for loans, and we're going to have to pay for this in some way. Right now we have scheduled 4 more rate increases at 4.5% every year. My goal every year is to beat that number by being more efficient, more effective, finding grant money, finding low interest, low money, optimizing the cost of the facility. So instead of 4.5%, we ask for 4 or 3.5. But the truth of the matter is we have to raise $250 million just for one project. You can't pay for it unless you have to ask for more money. And it's got to happen. So I saw a series of questions. Did I miss one over here? I know we got these two. We'll go here, you, and then you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I know the DB team was just selected, but do you know what technology you might go ahead with as far as treatment goes?
We have some ideas.
Yeah.
We're looking at mirroring the Northside facility, which is a fantastic facility, and setting aside space for advanced nutrient removal technology. So that's the one unknown for us, is how much nutrient removal technology needs to go there. But we'll have a different type of filtration system, for example, a more advanced filtration system. The ammonia from this facility will be dramatically less than the ammonia from the facility that is currently there.
What's the nutrient limits going to be for total nitrogen, ammonia, and phosphorus?
I should know that off the top of my head, but we have it in our permit now. It's in our permit now.
Same at PDS permit?
Yes, but if you go to our PDS permit, it'll show you what it is and what it has to be when this facility goes online. And I honestly am sorry I don't have them memorized, but they're lower than they are today. They are lower than they are today. And we're reserving space in this facility. I'm looking for my time, make sure I'm not running over.
We're getting really close.
Okay.
So I do want to be respectful of folks' time. If anybody does need to leave, it's 10 o'clock now. If you have time and you want to stick around, then as long as Ken is good to do that, then you're welcome to hang out.
Yeah, I don't really have very much more other than to say that this is our next gift to the environment. A better wastewater treatment plant than we have today.
So how do we rate against similar size municipalities, cities, whatever, as far as our water and sewer rates are concerned?
So our water and sewer rates are about $75, which is right in the middle of where most folks are. We're in the middle. We're better off, quite frankly, in terms of costs than folks right around us. And as a percentage of our income, it's much better. Now, what makes it complicated is if you live inside the city, we also bill for the city's solid waste service and trash. So the bill you see may be $116 or $120. 38 of it is something separate from us. But if you look at just the water and sewer component, which is what we control, it's $75. Somebody tell me what you pay for your phone every month. Anybody? My beloved wife is in the back. Sweetheart, what do we pay for 4 lines? Do you remind me? Because we buy our daughters, right? About $270. Yeah. We're probably paying too much, but think about it. What are you paying for your phone? What are you paying for internet? $75 is painful, I admit that, for an essential component of life and to ensure our environment is protected. Compared to, internet access, it's a bargain. Matter of fact, this is how much a bargain it is, right? I'm going to end it like this. So, price per gallon. How much are you paying CFPUA customers for us to bring a gallon of water to your door? Less than a penny. Less than a penny. Less than a penny. So, and by the way, you're now getting incredible water through a facility that other people are envious of. So I encourage you to ban the bottle, to put the bottle down. And I mean the plastic water bottle. Yep. And take advantage of what you're paying for. Yes, sir.
My question has to do with saltwater intrusion.
Mm-hmm.
With Kings Ridge being, I think you said 20 miles.
Kings Bluff, yep, about 25 miles upstream.
That's far enough away from any potential saltwater intrusion, is that right?
Yeah, well actually that is the actual barrier. During drought periods, there have been ocean fish and brackish fish caught up at the dam, but the dam is a physical barrier. So on the upstream side is freshwater, downstream side is normally freshwater, but it can be brackish during a drought. And that's the last place where you're guaranteed fresh water.
I see.
Yeah, do we have lead pipes here, and is there a plan for replacing them?
Great question. So, we have galvanized pipes that have lead appurtenances, which means that there was a little piece of lead called a lead gooseneck that connected that cast iron pipe to the galvanized pipe. We have one of the best programs in the state. It was recognized just this year with a major grant to remove those galvanized lines and replace them. We're not like northern and midwestern cities where you have true lead lines from the main to the house. We're very fortunate as our community. We actually found a couple of lead goosenecks. The water line was so close to the house that instead of using a galvanized pipe, they tied 2 lead goosenecks together. We found a few of those. Those are gone. But I think I'm going off memory here, and memory is always sketchy. We have about 500 locations that we're looking at. We're going to dig about 10,000, somewhere between 10,000 and 30,000 holes to verify these connections that we're unsure of. So, you know, a location on either side. And then we have, thanks to North Carolina again, we have about $4.5 million, about $3 million of that was principal forgiveness. That's another term for grant. We were the single largest grant recipient for lead and copper removal in the state. And that's because I have the best lead and copper team in the state. Again, it's not my fault. I inherited such a great group. Take no credit. Yes, sir.
Are you getting support from Raleigh State Legislature in these programs?
Absolutely. Our delegation, and we're nonpartisan as staff, we're absolutely nonpartisan. But we can credit both sides of the aisle and give a great deal of credit to our delegation for stepping up and helping us. When I first got here, the delegation brought $30 million in special appropriations. First time ever. And they had been planning on working on that. Good for them. This year, CFPUA benefited from $118 million in special appropriations. And it was our delegation, Senate leadership and House leadership, who brought that to the table. Again, we're nonpartisan, we're just telling you what happened.
5 or 6 years ago, I don't think that was true at all.
Wasn't true at all. We were, and again, I come from other parts of the state. Other parts of the state benefit from powerful delegations in the past. Right now you have a very, very influential delegation. And they have, to their credit, seen water and sewer as a big deal. So they brought $53 million over 2 years to that raw water line problem. They gave a special appropriation of $30 million, I'm sorry, let me get my math right, of $18 million just for these PFAS lines. They've got about $25 million in the budget to facilitate consolidations, and about $45 million to New Hanover County to facilitate economic development projects. And this is why I think that there's a lot of debate about whether growth is good. I'm not going to jump into that debate. I will tell you that for just our small slice of the pie, just for utilities, new customers that pay for themselves is very good. It's like an insurance pool. We have all this old infrastructure, and we've got a small group of folks to pay for it. If the growth is responsible and it pays for itself, and it's done in a way that doesn't hurt the community in other ways, it's good for us because it's like adding new, young ratepayers to the insurance pool. So again, to the delegation's credit, they've kind of focused on, all right, how can we give back to the community long term? And that's to ensure that there's some sustained growth within the community, and those new customers are going to be paying to replace your old infrastructure. Yes, sir.
Does DEQ have sufficient staff and funding to fulfill their part of this activity?
So who had the next question? I can't speak to that. I would like them to have more, but I honestly can't speak to that. I do know with the resources that they have, they've done incredible stuff on behalf of our customers. We should be very, very grateful to Secretary Beiser and her team for the work they've done over the last couple of years. All right, last chance, and then we're all done.
I just have comments.
Go.
First of all, I want to thank him because it's a big deal for him to come here and share all this information specifically about the PFAS stuff, because we are sort of a watchdog of them. Cape River Watch, calls them out like that's what we need to do for the community. Mm-hmm. He's very well aware of this, and he works with us on that PFPRA situation with the small short chain. We met with him. Kenny and I are on a chat, email, phone conversation, and constantly he met with us right away, when we said we're concerned. But the reason we were able to be concerned is because CFPUA is publishing their PFAS results. Most of the utilities in this region are not doing that. You can go to their website and look at the filtered water and the raw water sample results, and that's pretty huge. I think Lauren left, but she mentioned the private utilities. We've been fighting the private utilities for months now because they're not doing anything. I know he's being gracious. They're not doing anything. And so I just wanted to point that out. But there is another thing I do want to share, and this is because it's my responsibility as the Cape River Watch Executive Director in this environment. There are more unknowns out there than what they're sampling for. 60 to 70 is great that they're sampling, they're releasing that. We know from the consent order there's at least 257 unknowns. So it's highly commendable that they're changing out their carbon as much as they are, understanding it's the cost of the ratepayers and everybody else in this region to cover it, and that's garbage. And the fact that we have to move carbon up the country, tainted with PFAS, how many, bi-weekly?
We're moving 16 truckloads every 60 days.
So that's not great, right? We don't know what's happening when they burn it up there. The emissions controls that they were told to me were very safe. And then reverse osmosis, the folks that are doing reverse osmosis, pulling that contaminated water in, running it through the filter, dumping that contaminated water right back into the river. So none of these things are solutions. The solution is, as Ted mentioned, make the polluter, fix it at the site, stop the production. Because no matter how long, they say they've stopped their discharge, they've stopped their emissions, they're not. It's still coming out, it's still creeping into the river, it's still creeping into the groundwater, through the air. That's where we need to stop it at the source. I had to get on my little soapbox a little bit, but I also wanted to point out to folks that might not know, the person that shared this information with us at the beginning in 2017, that published that article with the toxin taints CFPUA is in the back of the room right there. We all should give him a round of applause. I'm sorry to embarrass you, Vaughn. I just had to do it.
Well, I'm going to do more than that. So Vaughn is our communications director, but this summer we changed his job descriptions. He's also my policy advisor.